Welcome to Middle Earth Readings. My name is Maggie Cunning and I'm the founder of maginrose.com, which is there to provide trainings and resources and support for healers, seers, mystics and magicians, either working in or interested in the Northern European tradition. And those of you who've joined me before will know that Middle Earth Readings, we use the movements of the planets through the runic wheel to find what's available for us in terms of wisdom and practices so that we can flow with weird, with the flow of fate, the energies of the runes and of the gods through the course of the week. So happy Monday and happy spring equinox to people. I really enjoyed spring equinox this weekend. It was slightly changeable weather, but I very much enjoyed planting strawberries in the garden with my sons over the spring equinox. So that was really, really nice. And when I looked at the runes, the planetary movements for this week, I was flabbergasted. I was like, really? Because there's only one, and that is right at the end. So on Sunday, we're going to have Frigg's chariot moving into Ewaz, the rune of the steed and the rune of partnership. And good morning, Helen. Helen says good morning to me, and hello, Suzanne. Suzanne says she's got Berkano for the week. Suzanne, you are always in tune with what's going on. Many of you already know we're in the half month of Berkano at the moment, and the spring equinox is actually sort of normally bang in the centre of the half month of Berkano. So Berkano is the rune of growth, new beginnings, the divine mothers. And those of you who are subscribed to the newsletter will know I'm doing a series at the moment about the earth goddesses in honour of the Berkano rune. So that Berkano energy is really, really present for us. Good morning, Felicity. Felicity says that Wunyo leapt out of the bag for you this morning. Okay, we'll have a little look at Wunyo in a moment. So yeah, it's quite unusual to have just one planetary movement in any given week with runic astrology, because those of you who follow the zodiac will know there are 12 signs of the zodiac, and there are 24 runes, which basically means that the planets move at double the pace, through pretty much everything. So it's always fun. Just like, oh, it's interesting that we've got this pause, but I think this is a really important pause. In fact, a pregnant pause. If you think about Berkano being like the great mother. And it's reflecting not only, I feel, the sort of surge of new energy that's coming in and that the runes have told us through things like Urud's chariot in Lagus, the rune of growth and water and renewal. But also I feel is reflecting the spring equinox energy, and the fact that for many of us we are feeling, I think, as if we're on a hinge. The hinge of the spring equinox of the old and the new is, I think, particularly acute for us at the moment. There's this real calling forth. The sun's calling us forth. The earth is out there blooming. We want to go out, and I feel as if it's making what's happening out there in the world both full of hope and still full of challenge. And I'm very aware, for example, that in Europe we have people going into a third lockdown. I think that must be, my heart really goes out to them. Obviously I'm hoping in the UK that won't happen. And we're in this sort of in-between time is the way that I feel it. And I think accepting that, probably not many of us really did feel that, we're really starting to feel now that, okay, there isn't going to be a return to the way of being, that we it's not going to be like, oh, and now we're just, COVID's over, and we go back to life as was. And that can feel like a drag and a drain in many ways, but it's also, there's potential there. And I know a lot of people are talking about that, saying, what can we bring that's positive out of this? So I'm going to spend a little bit of time thinking about that. And the theme that's come through for this reading is around the self and the other, and around the need for connection. And that brings in the Ewaz rune, which will be coming with Frigg's chariot on Sunday. So in many ways, this is a week to acclimatise, sort of get used to what's going on, so that we can move into Frigg's chariot. And then soon as chariot, the sun moves into Ewaz on the Monday, and we have this sort of cascade of moving into this rune of partnership and communion and connection. But our partnerships and our ways of communing and our means of connection with each other as species are very different now to what they were before. So I think this is why we have this pause where we can just say, okay, let's feel into this a little bit. So Suzanne, for your room with Berkano, I'm going to be sharing an exercise which I know you're on awakening. So for those of you who are on the awakening program, you can, in your Berkano module, what I'm going to be discussing, we have a much bigger sort of meditation using this. I'm going to be doing a pressy on that because I think that it's really important at the moment. So Felicity, you've mentioned Wunyo, and for me, again, if you think about Wunyo in terms of I'm feeling the light, it's the rune of the light, it's the rune of joy, it's the rune of connection with others. So I think that actually works very well with the theme in terms of thinking about the self and others, thinking about our desire to connect with others and be with others comes through very strongly. And maybe that's sort of connecting into what is it that you want moving forward? Where is that place of joy? Can you access it fully at the moment? We do need to have a sense of there will be a brighter future that we are slowly making our way towards. And the world is changing around us, but we're also changing as well. And we need to be able to hold on to that sort of that rudder of what is important to us. So what is the Wunyo telling you? The Wunyo is telling you about your sources of joy and connection. And Alexis, happy equinox. I chose Urus this morning. Oh, lovely healing rune, lovely earth energies, very much feeling into that Berkano, the spring equinox, connecting with the earth, giving me a little reminder of one of the things I need to mention when we're talking about Berkano rune. And Suzanne says, do you mean bed? Suzanne, I think I've lost the thread there. So yeah, Suzanne and Felicity are having a little conversation here. When you leapt out of the bag this morning, said Felicity, I see. Okay, this is an aside for those of you who can't see the comments. Felicity said, when you leapt out of the bag with me this morning. Suzanne then said, do you mean bed? As in when you leapt out of the bed. And then, yes, Suzanne said, I made that slightly wrong. But I quite like the idea of when you're leaping out of bed. I have to admit, I don't often have those days where I'm like, yes, in the morning when I wake up. I quite like that, a Wunyo morning. Maybe I'll make that one of the things that I vision for is that my mornings will become more Wunyo, the rune of joy as they come in. So I wish that for you, Felicity, and Suzanne, jumping out of bed, happy good mornings. So let's think about this pause moment. So we've got, I've mentioned, that this idea of us slowly sort of unlocking through lockdown. Some of you will know I'm doing a piece with the lovely Sarah Pratt on unlocking through lockdown on Tuesday, tomorrow. So if you want to join us for that, there's a link in the page. But that's going to be different for everybody. I think that's the thing. And more we're getting that sense of, the world was in lockdown, but now the vaccination programs are happening at different paces. It's the variants are coming through, so there's going to be a greater diversity of experience, I would say, and different policies for different countries are going to impact in different ways. So some will be opening their borders, some won't. If they rely on the tourist trade heavily, that's going to be a number one priority for them. Others not so much, so those borders will stay closed. So we're going to be experiencing more and more that sense that not everyone's experience is the same, and I think that's going to cause some conflict. Why can they travel and I can't travel? I was listening to a program where they were talking about, well, people who have had the vaccination, can they do more than people who haven't? And that's hard. That sort of triggers us. Why am I not allowed to do that if they are? So there's a lot there, and I think this is why the idea of self and other starts to come through. And with the Ewaz rune of partnership, it's very much talking about self and other. It's if you look at the shape of the Ewaz rune, it's like a M. It's, if you put it on its side, it becomes an E, which is E is the modern capital. E is where the Ewaz rune went to, so it's actually an E, but it looks like a M. And people see it as two horses looking at each other. So we've got the self and we've got the other gazing at each other. So it is that moment of connection between self and other. And I'm really present to other challenges. And I wrote about this in the newsletter, which has come out for a lot of you today, about gender parity, gender difference, which has come up a lot in the UK, at the moment, and with International Women's Day and discussions about a lack of parity there, about climate change, our relationship with the earth and how important that is and how high up it is on the agenda. The Black Lives Matter campaigns continue. All of these things are continuing to come through. And it does feel to me as if part of the emerging into a new normal will be, how do we, given that as a species we have been so pulled together so collectively, and we've been dealing with something that everyone is dealing with, and yet we have still managed to find spaces of conflict, which is no bad thing because we're supposed to be addressing them. But maybe that is going to be a continued thing for us. This continued negotiation of boundaries, negotiation of values, and how do we come to that? So what I wanted to do was to share, I'm going to share one exercise. There are actually two that I've got in mind, but we'll see how we go with time as to what I can share for you. And the one that I want to share for you for this week is really centering in self and our relationship with others around us. And it is one that there's a longer extended meditation version in the Berkano Awakening module. But I think that just the outline itself is helpful, and I've been using it quite a lot. And what you can do is you can chant the Berkano rune name. You can raise its energy around you before you do this. You can go into a sort of meditative state. You can sit outside to do it. In the lovely spring air would be nice. And it's just about bringing awareness to personal boundaries. Good morning, Erica. Happy equinox to you too. So the Berkano rune is about shape shifting, form, changing our form. And what's I've been thinking about more and more at the moment is the way in which we've had to, we've physically changed our boundaries a huge amount. Countries' borders have closed down. We are not going into our workplaces, many of us, some of us are. And when those people who are going into their workplaces, they've got masks on and protective gear on. There's a physical distancing going on, like literally a physical distancing going on. So our physical boundaries have changed hugely. A lot of us are located in a much smaller area of land at the moment. We're not traveling as much. Our homes have become more important to us. And for those of us who work, spiritually, energetically, it has to be the case that our energy boundaries have changed as well. And, for those of you who don't think about it in terms of sort of energy, like flow with me, there's a lot of this that's about mindset as well. But I think it's going to be very important for us to have a continued conscious awareness of our boundaries, how we're feeling them, how they're making us feel when a boundary is crossed or not crossed, how we're enforcing them, and how that's changing over time, and how we might need to readjust those for ourselves in smaller community groups moving forward, and also how we're going to have to deal with the fact that as lockdown eases, there will be people who have different boundaries that they've put up for themselves. There will be some who will still feel very sensitive, very vulnerable, in the sort of shielding category. There will be some for whom the restrictions now bring out that sort of rebellious spirit. If you think about the Berkano rune, and Loki, he is a traverser of boundaries, the trickster energy. And anyone, if you've been constrained for a long period of time, you sort of want to burst forth. So it's being aware of that and bringing consciousness to our boundaries is, I think, really important. So the exercise that I've been doing is to sit first of all in awareness of my physical boundaries, as in like my skin, and really to feel into that, sort of feel into, okay, where are the edges of my body? How is that feeling to me at the moment? And if you think about that in terms of our needs, a lot of us have sacrificed what I consider to be a need, a need for physical human connection. Some people have not had that at all. They have had like months and months and months without physically touching another human being. So being aware of that, and in meditation, what I do, you can do some sort of self-care, some self-massage to help with that, to alleviate that sense of disconnection to other human beings. And as we move forward, that's going to be important as well when you think about, the shock of somebody. And I don't know about you, but if I go to the supermarket and your hand like touches the hand of the cashier, it feels like it feels shocking, in some way. And if and you're thinking, okay, I've got to get a hand sanitizer on, are they okay? And all of those things are happening, which they just weren't happening before. For some people, yes, they've always been very aware of like sanitization, and I've had to for health reasons, but for most of us that hasn't been a big thing. And so that's a boundary that we're now negotiating in a very different way. And I'm imagining, when I meet people, when I meet my friends, when we had a little ease of lockdown, the urge to hug each other is so strong, just want to hug somebody. So our physical boundaries work both ways, and we're being told all the time that a boundary is being crossed here, that I can't do that. So bringing that presence to the physical boundaries, really helpful. Susanna said, I've just bought a Shakti mat, so really get in touch with my skin and body. Yeah. And I think this is so important for us, because I do believe that for a lot of us, because we've had to shut down that, we've had to say, okay, I can't connect. We need to be able to ease back into that in some way. And so getting in touch with your skin and your body and claiming it and owning it is really important. And I don't talk about this in relation to the energy body, but for people who are, empathic, who are psychic, who are very energetically sensitive, it can be so easy to just go, I am feeling deeply, deeply uncomfortable in this physical incarnation right now, and I am stepping out of my body. There is no one here. The lights are on, but no one is home. And, and I do feel that for us, moving back into our bodies is so important. So working with that barrier or boundary, very important. But then we've got further layers. I think about it in terms of my personal space. And you will know this. You will know when you feel like they are invading my personal space. And I used to work with I worked in a number of complaints departments for some reason. I don't know why, but I have. And sometimes you just get people who are like, I am moving into your personal space now. It's a threatening thing. You feel it straight away. You might also get, a lover moving into your personal space, and they're not even touching you, but you can feel it, so it can be good and bad. But we have that idea of our personal space. And for some of us, that would be, you might think about it as your aura. That might equate. For others, it won't, but you can work with it in that way as well. So again, thinking about where are my energetic boundaries, and have they changed through the course of lockdown, and how sensitive am I to that, and who would I let in and who would I not let in? Who is it okay? The more that we prepare to emerge back out into the world and maybe to make our bubbles bigger, the more we might need to think about that the sense of who is allowed into our personal space and who is not might have shifted significantly, and that might be a long-term thing. And again, for some of us, that desire for connection might be so strong that we might energetically be sort of calling people in. So again, that's about tending to that and thinking, okay, I need to be comfortable and centered in my space. And again, I would say for this, one of the things I really noticed was when I was looking at my energy boundaries, I was going, okay, very common with people who are, empathic or psychically aware or work, energetically, is for a lot of your presence to move up into the head zone, and to not be down in the earth. And I found literally just doing, a lot of you will do the exercise, putting the roots down into the ground, but actually feeling my personal space moving down into the ground. So not necessarily even roots, more a sort of bubble that is continually connected to the earth, and being barefoot a lot more of the time as well. So I can sense into that and sort of push my presence back down into the earth, has I found to be really, really helpful in terms of thinking, okay, I need that connection. And again, it's something that if you've been starved of connection, it can be very easy to just shut off entirely. No, it's much easier for me to just not be here. So doing that work of tending your personal space is again important. But then I think we also have another layer, which is perhaps less familiar or less talked about, but I think it's going to be more important for us moving forward as we start to sort of feel Now, where are my boundaries? Where are my barriers? And I think about this as being the space of the people that we know, who we consider to be like in our clan or our tribe. You might think about this in terms of, like, think about like an office environment. I'm in my office environment, and there's an awareness going on. Not in the same way as Ewaz. When you get to the Ewaz rune on Sunday, Ewaz rune is the horse, and the horse is a prey animal. So they have their 360 awareness going on all of the time around them as to what's happening and what's in their space. We don't have that. We've got predator eyes moving forward, but that doesn't mean that we're not using our senses all the time to say who's in my space, who's not in my space. Now, I was really aware, working in a university, I often worked in like exams offices and complaints departments where we have very confidential files. And you would, somewhere in your peripheral knowledge, you knew who was coming in and out of that door. And everyone would go, oh, it would just be this alertness when somebody who wasn't recognized came through the door, because it was a bit like, is this somebody who should be in this space? And there was just this sense of, who is it? Are they okay? Do they need help? Are they lost? What do they want? So we do have that sense. And I feel as if this is a really important one, because a lot of us, we've been at home for a long period of time. There are very few people who we've allowed through our front door. And what's that going to be like for you? Who's going to be in that clan tribe space? And I think that's going to be a very negotiated space moving forward. And I don't think that we've really fully come to an understanding of what that might mean for us. So, will we have longer periods where we're working, like I'm speaking to you right now, where we're connecting with people who we might consider to be members of our clan or our tribe, but they're not in our peripheral space. How do we maintain relationships in that way? How do we reach out across those boundaries and have those boundaries got smaller for us? So I think that's something that we're going to want to tend to moving forward, which is why I wanted to bring it to presence for you today. And I'd be really interested to know whether that's been helpful for you, whether that's given you some thinking material moving forward, because I don't think it's just about awareness. It's also about choice. I'm bringing conscious choice to these things and sort of saying, am I coming from a place of fear? Am I coming from a place of empowerment? And recognizing that this is going to call us maybe into conflict more frequently with people than we are used to. Because it used to be, if somebody invaded your personal space, some people would be like, get out, others, they'd be like, oh, it's okay, sorry. And we might need to become much more comfortable at negotiating those boundaries with others. I had an experience of that this weekend when I went out with my boys, and it was very noticeable to me that different parents, have different boundaries that they put in place for their children. Berkano is the rune of protection for children as well, sort of infants and vulnerable people. And as adults, we've got our own we're protecting the boundaries of the people who are responsible for us as well. So you've got your own boundary radar, and you've also got boundary radar for the people who are important to you. They may be your children, or they may be people that you employ, people that you care for. And I think that's the final piece that I would add at this point, is to say, as we move into Ewaz, the partnership rune on Sunday, we need to be more comfortable as well in thinking about, I'm not just responsible for my own boundaries. There's a collective piece there as well, sort of collective. Who am I responsible for in terms of helping to teach them what boundaries are appropriate, or in protecting those boundaries for them, or in respecting the boundaries of somebody else that might be different to my own. So I would really encourage you maybe to think about that Berkano exercise, have a little play with that this week, so that once we get to the Ewaz rune on Sunday, and we're thinking more about partnership and collaboration, and I'm doing this, you don't know what that means, but the exercise for the Ewaz rune works so much more in terms of thinking about the energy between two people, two opposites, and what that energetic space is between them. So we'll be thinking a little bit more about that. So get comfortable in your Berkano energy through this coming week, while we're finishing off on the half month of Berkano, and we'll be moving into the lovely, fabulous Ewaz energy. I've got my little horse here preparing me for hours through the coming space. So Suzanne says, loving this so much, thank you, that's great. Kelly says, I definitely need to look at my energy boundaries and protect them more. Yeah, I mean, I think that it's important for everybody, whether or not you think about this as a, you know, a spiritual or an energetic practice, or whether you're thinking about it more as a mindset and going back into the workplace, or, you know, what your home's going to be like and having people in your home and things. It's something that we all need to think about. So thank you all ever so much. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.